24 at home to France is the French captain Grégory Aldrit.
We had a great performance today. We were really frustrated after the Italy game, so we wanted to make our fans proud again. So really happy, and it's always a pleasure to play in this incredible stadium.
In golf, Bailey Tardy claimed her first LPGA title as she beat fellow American Sarah Schmelzel by 4 shots at Blue Bay in China. And the reigning world champion Francesco Bagnaia won the season-opening MotoGP race in Qatar. Brad Binder finished second, with Jorge Martin third.
Paul Serras. Spain is marking the 20th anniversary of the train bombings in Madrid, which killed nearly 200 people. It was one of the deadliest attacks in modern European history. Guy Hedgecoe reports from Madrid.
On the morning of March 11th, 2004, 10 bombs ripped through 4 commuter trains in Madrid. Today, a memorial service will be held in honour of the victims in the Almudena Cathedral. Other events will be held across the capital to mark the anniversary, and the bells of the city's churches will ring out in unison this morning. The attack had major repercussions beyond the huge personal trauma it caused. The erroneous insistence by the government that the Basque group ETA had been responsible for the jihadist bombing was seen as a cause of the Conservative People's Party being voted out of office 3 days later. Divisive conspiracy theories regarding the authorship of the attack continue to circulate to this day.
With paintings by well-known artists selling for millions of dollars, the incentive to create credible forgeries has never been greater. No more so than in Russia, where curators struggle to ensure what hangs in prestigious galleries is the real deal. Our BBC Russia correspondent Grigor Atanasian has sent this report on the lucrative, unregulated art market in his country.
9:30 on a summer evening.
An auction in London in the 1950s, and it's a scramble for an avant-garde Russian masterpiece, once banned by Stalin.
Sold for more than £500,000 in 1 hour, 2 minutes. They belong to the Guggenheim.
The demand for these radical modern pieces after World War II also brought a wave of forgeries, and it still fools buyers today.
I was in Russia at the time, and a very good friend of mine picked me up from some location in central Moscow in his inevitably vast great Jeep, and in the Jeep were stuffed tens of pictures which to my eye looked completely wrong, and I realized then that there was a major problem.
James Butterwick has spent much of his life as an art dealer. He is one of the outspoken few to publicly question the true value of these works, including by a Russian-Israeli art dealer called Leonid Zaks.
The Zaks collection, it's Disneyland, isn't it? The notion that a great collector suddenly discovers great caches of works of the Russian avant-garde hiding under people's bed in the Belarusian forest, it's right up there with the earth is flat.
Leonid Zaks, owner of the Zaks collection, which has pieces hanging in European and American museums and in Beatrice Gempel's home.
My parents, especially my father, from the late 60s, early 70s on, he bought extensively anything he liked.
Beatrice's family was sold a piece supposedly by the Russian master Lisitsky, a heavyweight of modern art in the same category as Matisse and Picasso.
After he died, when we had the first inheritance meetings, when one of the experts said that a whole range of paintings were dubious, we were absolutely shocked and we didn't believe it to start with.
Beatrice asked James to see what he thought.
Look, здесь прямоугольник.
James looked over the painting carefully. It did not look good. So we went to Hephaestus Analytical, a lab which specializes in spotting fakes using AI. Denis Moiseev is its founder.
On the simplified graph, it's quite clear that the magenta line representing the subject painting is really far away from the expected distribution of what we'd expect from a authentic Lisitsky. Therefore, I'm afraid the painting is a forgery.
But what about the man behind the collection, Leonid Zaks? I spent months tracking him down across Europe and the Middle East. The trail went cold, until finally, out of the blue, he wanted to talk. I asked Mr. Zaks where he got his paintings from.
Здравствуйте, здравствуйте. У меня мама была.
He told me his late mother had given him the paintings and insisted they were genuine, and he had no reason to question their provenance. But why does identifying fakes matter? Dr. Jeline Nadolny dedicated her career as a technical art historian to improving the integrity of the art market.
Public money is spent to acquire things for museums. Students go to school to learn about objects that are held up as authentic and representative of the historic record of a particular culture. This is our historical record, and if we allow this to happen, we're destroying our own past.
Grigor Atanasian reporting. While we've been on the air, Emma Stone has picked up the Oscar for Best Actress for her role in Poor Things, and Oppenheimer has won the Best Picture, taking it to a total of 7 awards this evening. We'll have more on the Oscars coming up at 4 o'clock GMT. But that's all for now. Thanks for listening.
This is the BBC World Service, meeting the young scuba divers of colour who are searching for sunken slave ships.
We invite you to join us on a special mission, searching for the slave shipwreck Guerrero. Diving with a Purpose, or DWP, is a non-profit which focuses on the protection, documentation, and interpretation of African slave trade shipwrecks.
The Guerrero was a pirate ship being chased by a British warship, and they wrecked in Biscayne National Park in 1827. There were 561 captive Africans on it. 41 of them died the night of that grounding.
It's a piece of history that has been incomplete for a very long time. Hopefully the work that we do will get us one step closer to our end goal, which is finding the Guerrero and finishing up that story.
Diving with a Purpose, Tuesday at 9:30 and 20 GMT, or listen now wherever you get your BBC podcasts.
On Crowd Science this week, we're investigating colour.
There was actually a really beautiful day last summer when I was sitting with a friend. We were looking at the colour of the sky, which was a really beautiful, vibrant blue. She asked me, well, is the blue that I'm seeing the same blue that you're seeing?
What affects the way we see the colours of the world, and can we be sure that our experience of colour is the same? That's on Crowd Science with me, Caroline Steele, after the news.
BBC News with David Harper. Several news agencies, including Reuters and the Associated Press, have retracted a photograph of the Princess of Wales and her 3 children, saying it appears to have been manipulated. The photo, taken by her husband, Prince William, was the first of Princess Catherine to be released by Kensington Palace since she had surgery in January. The leader of Portugal's Socialist Party, Pedro Nuno Santos, has admitted defeat in Sunday's parliamentary election after the centre-right Democratic Alliance won 79 seats in Parliament, 2 more than the Socialists. The far-right Chega Party is in 3rd place with 48 seats after almost tripling its vote. Germany and the EU have moved their embassy staff out of the Haitian capital Port-au-Prince as the security situation there deteriorates and the country spirals into gang violence. The United States has also evacuated non-essential embassy staff. The historical drama Oppenheimer, about the creator of the atom bomb, is the big winner at the Academy Awards ceremony in Los Angeles. It has won 7 awards, including Best Picture, Best Director for Christopher Nolan, and Best Actor for Cillian Murphy. Emma Stone won her 2nd Oscar for Best Actress for her role in Poor Things. A new report says Europe must prepare for catastrophic threats as climate change increasingly hits every part of the economy and society. It warns that most of the 3 dozen listed climate risks could hit catastrophic levels. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky has criticised Pope Francis's remarks that Kiev should have the courage to negotiate an end to the war with Russia, saying it was virtual mediation from a distance. A video released by the jihadist group Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula says its leader, Khalid Batafi, has died. It named a new leader, Saad bin Atif al-Awlaki. The British government has pledged $150 million over the next 4 years to boost protection for the country's Muslim population. BBC News.
It's going colour, black and white, still black and white, oh back to colour, it's coloured again. You're listening to Crowd Science on the BBC World Service. I'm Caroline Steele, and I'm in a dark room with a scientist who's testing my colour vision. and now it's gone black and white again. Ah, that's really weird. I've always seen the world in slightly different colours, depending on which eye I'm looking through, but more on that later. First, here's why this show is all about how we see colour.
Hi there, I'm Gregory. I'm from Minneapolis in the United States. My question is, does the color of our eyes affect how we visually perceive the world, especially in how we perceive color?
Ah, I'd never thought of eye colour changing how we see colour, but it kind of makes sense given light has to come in through our coloured eyes. What made you think of the question?
Well, there was actually a really beautiful day last summer when I was sitting with a friend. We were looking at the color of the sky, which was a really beautiful, vibrant blue, and she asked me, well, is the blue that I'm seeing the same blue that you're seeing? I figured that was a rather metaphysical question. How would I know if I can't see through her eyes? But then I thought, well, you have green eyes and I have blue eyes, so maybe there is a difference there. And I was just wondering what the science might be behind that.
What's your hunch? Do you think eye colour does make a difference?
I suspect it might, but I'm not sure if it would be a profound difference or just a subtle difference. I think, if I am correct on this, people evolved to have lighter color eyes in climates where there wasn't as much sunlight, so they might be taking in more light, and I don't know if that might affect how the color would appear.
Maybe the scene you're seeing is brighter than the scene I'm seeing with my brown eyes.
Conceivably, yes.
But how are we ever going to test this? Because you can't get inside someone's head, right?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I really don't know. So maybe it is an ultimately unknowable philosophical question, but if there's something that the science can tell us, I'd be curious to hear.
Gregory wants to know whether the colour of your eyes affects the colour that you see. Have people in climates with less sunlight evolved to have lighter eyes, and does that mean the colours they perceive are slightly different? And how on earth can we tell? Well, let's start with the tangible, physical stuff. What happens when light enters our eyes?
There's lots of things about our color vision we still don't understand, but I can tell you some basic things that we do know.
This is Jay Knights, Professor of Ophthalmology, which means he studies eyes, at the University of Washington in the US.
One thing that we know is that our vision is based on 3 different kinds of receptors in our eye. That is, if we have normal color vision. And sometimes we say that one of those receptors is most sensitive to blue, one most sensitive to green, and one most sensitive to red. And those are versions of what people call the primary colors. And a lot of people understand that, like a television or a display on a computer uses 3 different colors. They get mixed together in order to give us all the different rich colors that we see. And the reason for that, reason why we can see all the colors with just 3 different primaries mixed together, is because of the fact that we have 3 different color receptors.
So if you can see all colours, you have trichromatic vision, which means you have all 3 of these cones which each pick up on a different colour or frequency of light. We'll come back to Jay later to find out what else affects the colours we see, because these receptors are just one of the things involved in colour vision. To get to the cones at the back of the eye, light has already passed through the cornea at the front, in through the pupil, which is the black hole you see in the middle, and through the clear lens behind that. And the pupil is controlled by the iris, which is the coloured part that Gregory's wondering about. And then there's a question of how our brain perceives all this information. So how on earth do scientists untangle all of this?
So the purpose of the test is to see whether there are some lights where you can make the top half and the bottom half look exactly the same.
Okay. This is Hannah Smithson, Professor of Experimental Psychology at the University of Oxford. She's testing my vision to try and work out why I see different colours through each eye.
And so
If you could just describe how the top and bottom appear to you at the moment.
The top is a sort of yellowy green, and the bottom I'd say is a orange. I'm looking down a microscope at a coloured circle, and this circle is divided in two. The bottom half is an orangey colour, and the top half is sort of yellowy green. I'm twisting a dial to change the colour composition of the top, and I'm trying to match it to the bottom. So now they both kind of look orange, but I'd say the bottom one is slightly lighter than the top, so I'm trying to make it darker using my dial. This is fiddly. Okay, I think I'm there. I think I'm happy with that.
Is that good?
Yeah, they're the same. The top and bottom look the same.
Lovely, that's great.
The test shows I have normal colour vision, known as trichromatic vision, which is something Hannah has studied in a lot of people before me.
You have two individuals who have normal trichromatic colour vision. If you ask them to adjust three lights, say a red, green and blue primary, to match a standard light, they will make the same adjustments to match the standard light. So we can objectively say in some way that their colour vision is the same, and that's the first sensory stage of their colour vision. And because that's the first stage of filtering signals that then get to later neural pathways, there's nothing that later neural pathways can do to change that initial step. So in that sense, groups of individuals who have the same complement of cone photoreceptors have colour vision that is the same in its sensory terms.
So if you have two people with three working cone types, and you give them a light which is a particular colour, let's say purple, they will mix blue and red light in the exact same way to match that purple light. But that doesn't necessarily mean that their colour experience is the same.
Our subjective experience of colour can be very dependent on colours that we've recently seen, or it can be influenced by colours that are placed next to one another. And so these are all sort of relative effects on colour appearance. And that's different from the sort of performance level of being able to discriminate two colours. This is now thinking, well, the subjective appearance of colours can be different for different individuals and under different circumstances.
This is something you've probably experienced when taking off sunglasses or going from a warmly lit room into bright daylight. It takes a few moments for our colour perception to recalibrate. So the environment we're in affects the colours we see, as does the makeup of the cones in our retina. But that's just one part of the eye. What about the iris, which is the coloured bit listener Gregory's interested in? Here's our Professor of Ophthalmology, Jay, again.
It turns out that people have actually measured to see if there's a relationship between the color of our eyes and the colors that we see. It's not a huge effect, but there is a significant impact of the colors we see based on the colors of our eyes.
Interesting. So Gregory's right, it does affect it.
Yeah, it makes a lot of intuitive sense too, so I guess that's not surprising.
How do you measure it? Because if I went to someone with blue eyes and said, you know, hey, does that grass look the same to you as it does to me? There's no way to get to that answer unless we somehow swap eyeballs, but I imagine that's not how people did that experiment.
The experiment that people could do is they have a way of spreading all the colors into the spectrum, just like a rainbow. And then there's a device that, you know, just selects out a very, very narrow portion of the rainbow, and have people just look at that color. And then people can be given a knob that they can turn, and when they turn the knob, it changes the parts of the spectrum that you're looking at. You can now say, I want you to find a color that is pure green. If you turn the knob one way, it'll have a little bit of blue in it, and if you turn it on the other way, the color will have a little bit of yellow in it, but somewhere you can adjust the knob so that it's a pure green that doesn't have any blue or yellow in it. it turns out that different people will set different wavelengths of light as being purely green. And this is the exact measurement that people were making to show that people that have different colors of irises, actually have different settings for what color looks purely green.
So when scientists did this with people with different eye colours, what did they find? Were people with blue eyes seeing more blue?
People with blue eyes were seeing more blue, yes.
Okay, and what about people with brown eyes? Is everything slightly browner?
No, it's less blue.
Is it literally just because light is passing through some blue that it ends up with a bit of a blue filter, or is that oversimplifying it?
Yeah, that's pretty close, I think. What happens is that people that have dark eyes, their iris is pretty opaque. Not very much light gets through it. And people that have lighter blue eyes, their iris actually lets a little bit of light through. And so people that have blue eyes just are actually getting a little bit of extra light falling on the retina that comes through their iris. And I think our eye just kind of adjusts to the fact that there's those differences.
You're listening to Crowd Science from the BBC World Service. I'm Caroline Steele, and we're answering a question from listener Gregory, who wants to know if our eye colour affects the colour we see. And we found out that Gregory's hunch was right. The colour of our eyes does change what we perceive, because people with blue eyes have more transparent irises, and they do actually see a bit more blue. But there's still more to find out. My eyes are both dark brown, and Hannah's already worked out that each eye sees colour normally. But when I shut one eye, I see slightly different colours from when I shut the other. So what exactly is going on?
So I'm going to show you a coloured image.
Yeah.
There's a little black dot right in the centre of it.
Okay.
While I'm talking, maybe you could just keep your eyes fixated on that black dot, just look at it for a while.
Okay. I'm looking at a strangely coloured image of a castle. The ground is purple and the sky is orange. Well, technically I'm looking at the black dot in the centre of that image. And after a minute or so, Hannah turns the page to reveal an identical but differently coloured castle. So there's a castle on a hill by Ed Sheeran, and there's a blue sky in the background and green base, which is slowly fading as I guess my retina is adjusting. But when I initially saw the image, I saw black and white, and then I saw colour, and then I saw black and white, and then I saw colour.
That might be rivalry between your two eyes. So what I'd like to ask you to do now is to do it with one eye and then the other eye. We're just trying to sort of understand a little bit about your colour perception between your two eyes.
Okay, cool.
It seems a little unusual.
Great. Once my eyes had adjusted, I realised that that second image was actually black and white. The colours I was seeing were entirely made up. My eyes had adapted to the purple and yellow castle I had just been looking at.
So what I'm actually going to do is get you to look at it with your left eye, and then when I flip, to look with your right eye. 3, 2, 1.
Totally black and white?
Yeah, okay.
I tried it with both eyes and found that one of my eyes adjusted much faster than the other. I could see that that second castle was black and white much more quickly with my left eye than with my right.
You've got normal colour vision in both eyes, so why do you have different perceptual experience in the two eyes? And one of the things that drives your perceptual experience is not just the types of cone that you have in your retina, but it's also how those cones are adapted to the sort of most prevalent lights, the ambient illumination that you're experiencing. And your cones and colour vision system is always adjusting its sensitivity, so it's optimally tuned to the things that you're most likely to encounter. And this is a process that can operate on quite a short time scale, and there are similar processes that operate on a long time scale. So, for example, during your lifetime, the lens at the front of your eye will change its colour properties. Lenses get yellower and darker as you get older. And so that's affecting the light that gets through to the retina. but you don't notice this change during your lifetime. You don't think that the world has got yellower and darker as you get older. And so there are some neural compensation mechanisms that are working over that long timescale.
Our eyes are constantly adjusting to our changing environment, be that day to day as we move between rooms in our homes, or over the course of a lifetime as our lenses yellow with age. Hannah thinks that this adjustment, or maybe lack of adjustment, is part of the answer as to why I see different colours out of each eye. And one thing Hannah knows for sure is that I have 3 working cones, which means I have trichromatic vision, which isn't the case for many people. Around 1 in 200 women and 1 in 12 men experience some kind of colour blindness.
As we can see on the screen, we've got red and white stripes and black and white stripes. So for myself, who's colourblind, I find this particularly difficult.
This is Adam Bibby. He's a lecturer in sports psychology at Oxford Brookes University in the UK. And he's a big fan of football. We're watching a match together on his TV.
And also, if there's kind of pastel or light blues, pinks or greens, they can be particularly difficult, especially against white. So taking it away from sport, just briefly, cooking chicken can be particularly difficult to actually know when it's cooked or not.
Because you can't tell the difference between raw and cooked chicken.
Exactly, yeah. So I wouldn't recommend coming to my house for dinner.
Okay, so just to go back to this game here, so we've got one team in red and white stripes, one team in black and white stripes, and the number on the black striped shirt is red, and the numbers on the red striped shirts is black.
Okay, that's news to me.
So that it makes it really, really hard. I mean, is that a problem when you're working as a sports psychologist, that you might not be able to distinguish between 2 different teams, which is presumably part of your job?
Yeah, and also commentators as well. We've done some research, and commentators have said they've had to try and become very familiar with the way that players move and what they look like, because they can't actually distinguish the kits. We've screened over 150 elite sports players now in football, and our prevalence is around 1 in 20. So it's suggesting that arguably there's a barrier for actually stopping people who are colourblind actually reaching the top kind of echelons of performance sport. So that's a huge thing.
In the land of sport, things are changing. World Rugby is introducing a new policy from next year to avoid kit clashes. There will no longer be a green South Africa playing against a red Chile. There are so many different things that affect your colour vision. There's the cones in the retina at the back of your eye, the colour of your irises at the front of your eye, and your eyes adjust to the environment you're in. Like how when you put sunglasses on, everything looks warm, but then you stop noticing it after a while. Listener Gregory thinks where you live might also affect your colour vision. Lauren Wellborn is a research associate at York University in the UK, and she studied how our perception of colour changes from summer to winter. And the colour she focuses on is unique yellow. Unique yellow is uniquely yellow. It doesn't have a hint of any other colour. And what looks like unique yellow to you might be different from what looks uniquely yellow to me.
So the wavelength that people pick as unique yellow gets shorter when it's summer compared to in winter. We think we're seeing the same colour, but actually the wavelength that we pick is actually towards the greener end. So it's an adaptation process, and adaptation or normalisation is really useful to us, because it wouldn't be very helpful if in summer it felt like we were walking around constantly looking at everything through a filter. We want things to look the same as we move through the world, like throughout the year. So even though we think that we're seeing the exact same yellow, we're picking the same colour as unique yellow, it's actually physically a different wavelength in summer than it is in winter that we pick.
So fascinating. So our listener Gregory, he wants to know whether each person sees the same colour. What do you think your research suggests might be the answer to that?
Well, it's a really interesting question, and that's obviously what colour vision scientists like to learn about. As far as unique yellow is concerned, my research definitely supports previous findings that there is some individual variability in what the wavelengths people are actually setting as unique yellow, but more than that, we found that like within an individual, those values can actually change depending on the environment that you're adapted to, which means that we're setting different physical values between the seasons, but we feel like we're seeing the same colour. What we don't know is that if you have two individuals that pick the same wavelength as unique yellow, we don't actually know if they're subjectively experiencing that colour in the same way. That's something that we would love to be able to kind of really pick apart, but that's more of a philosophy question, I suppose, at that end.
Lauren's research is the first to prove that natural changes in the environment